Welcome, everyone. My name is Holland Hubert, calling in from Atlanta, Georgia, and I want to welcome you all to our first podcast of the school year. I am now officially in my junior year at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, majoring in biology on the pre-medical track. I am an alumni member of the Patriots Nesby Junior Chapter and want to welcome you to the Patriots Nesby Junior Chapter podcast. Let's keep it moving on the podcast, sponsored by SD Tech, Northrop Grumman, and the Richmond Foundation. Today, we have Cliffondra Brown with us. Cliffondra Brown is the Vice President of Customer Relations and Training and Development at RadNet, a radiology firm that provides high quality and affordable diagnostic imaging services. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Holland. Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting.
Of course. So I know that I gave some information on you and what you do, but could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at RadNet?
Yes, I am the Vice President of Customer Relations and Training and Development, and I've been at RadNet Incorporated for 18 years. It seems like it was just yesterday. And my responsibility throughout the company is I like to call myself a catch-all of all things. We, of course, provide high-quality, cost-effective diagnostic imaging for people throughout the United States, with 7 states that we take care of specifically. However, in my role, I touch a little bit of everyone. Our team members, who are also some very STEM-related team members who do great work in the world of radiology, need a little inspiration, sometimes a little navigation, and how to navigate patient experiences and people relationships. So I spend a great deal of time doing that for our team and helping everyone to just make sure and ensure that we're giving quality and equitable and, of course, patient service healthcare.
Wow, that is beautiful. That's very nice. It's very nice. And so, seeing as RadNet is one of the largest providers of outpatient imaging services, what did your roadmap look like that led you to this specific career path?
That's such a fun question, Holland, because I did not go to school for that. I went to Morgan State University and I actually a double major in English and political science.
Mm.
Go figure. I was going to go to, I know, right? I was going to go to law school. And I think maybe closer to my senior year, I decided that I didn't want to do that. And I was working a job in retail. And I was doing really well in retail, and they were going to give me a track of stores that I would be able to run as a district manager. So I was in district manager training. And I just happened to run into a dynamic gentleman who was a vice president in a radiology company who would shop at my store and said, I've got to have you working for me. There's no way all this energy should stay in Eddie Bauer. It's not acceptable. And I wound up just happenstance into radiology. And that was back in 1999.
Wow. Wow. And so what did that transition look like from you being an English major, pre-law to going into your role at RadNet?
Well, I will tell you this. Initially, I was scared to death, Helen, because I thought, oh my goodness, all of these smart people from biology and these people are doing science and math. And I was more on the theoretical side of things. I was more creative. However, what I found was that this had to be the most fulfilling and interesting role I've ever taken. The ability to impact people's lives, especially patients' lives, in a way that changes the trajectory of what they do and how they navigate was huge. And as well as having the opportunity to see so many cool things in radiology, MRI, CT, X-ray, ultrasound. I didn't think that I'd be intrigued by that, but come to find out that I was a little bit of a science nerd at heart. I never knew that. I never knew that. So it was a lot of fun to be able to come into the world of medicine and radiology and really learn a lot about human anatomy and a lot about of people and insurances and operations and how we took care of patients. That was like going to school all over, but it was the school of actually physically working it. So I think that it really broadened my horizon and allowed me to think of myself in an entirely different way.
Wow. And so do you think that being an English major, do you think that that paid off in the end to what you're doing now? Because I know you said it's a lot of science and math, all those type of things. So has that helped?
Yes, absolutely. I thought at first, I thought it didn't because I kept thinking, oh goodness, I don't think I was the best math major in school. I would get a solid B, right? However, I was like A plus when it came to English and navigating people. But the truth of the matter is that everything that we do, regardless of whether it has to do with mathematics and science and technology, it's also we're dealing with people. And when
Mm,
you're dealing with people and relationships, the number one thing that you have to learn to do is communicate, and to communicate well and to communicate often. So that was something that was right up my alley. Communication was right up my skill set. So it didn't matter what people's specific skill set was when it came to the work they were doing. But what
mm,
mattered was how do we unify that together so that
mm.
we all can go towards one common goal?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so that kind of reminds me a little bit of networking. So I know networking is really big when making connections, just getting to know people. So do you have any advice? Because for me personally, I need help with networking. So just any advice on really how to put yourself out there to make relationships with people?
Okay, so the first thing I will say is be authentically you. Who you are at the core is always so much easier than who what people think you need to be.
Okay.
So being yourself is number one because that naturally is attractive. And guess what? You don't have to think so hard. The next thing that I've learned is that be kind on purpose. I would say that again. Be purposefully kind. People don't always realize that kindness is the highest level of intelligence out of anything. Doesn't matter how many book smarts you have, doesn't matter how many degrees you have, but if you're an unkind person, no one's going to want to deal with you. So being a person who naturally puts forth their best self and is kind and is open and willing to be curious and learn something different. There's not a person who I encounter, including you, Holland, that I'm not going to learn something different about. So being open in that perspective, opening your mind, opening your heart to experiencing new things, and being a genuinely kind person gets you in a lot of doors that even your skill set and career may not open initially.
Mm, thank you. And so I understand that you do have a partnership with Patriots Technology Training Center. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, I am so excited about Patriots. So I met Thurman at a wonderful, wonderful event that one of the delegates was having, and he approached and said, we want to do a biomedical competition for radiology. And I said, absolutely. There's nothing better than our young brown and black people having a good understanding of the world of radiology. Radiology is a very interesting field to go into. And also, I really think that a lot of our children don't know a lot about radiology. It's not something you discuss. Like you're in pre-med, am I correct?
Yes.
Hello, we need radiologists. Right? Because when people think about being a doctor, a lot of times, unless you're going to be a surgeon or they go to a general practitioner. And I'm thinking, do you know how amazing it is to be a radiologist? They do interventional studies. They do all kinds of things. Let's even talk about breast studies that are very important that we need, especially in the brown and black communities.
Mhm.
So it really, truly was wonderful to have that opportunity to open a door to a world that a lot of people don't know a lot about. But
Yeah.
you can learn a lot about it. And it's also a very great first career that you could do simultaneously while going to school. And you can go to radiology school as well. So most radiology programs, you go and you get your AA, and then you can go right for 18 months into radiology school and
Wow.
become an X-ray tech. And then from an X-ray tech, you can learn to be a mammographer, a CT. You can go to be MRI, PET CT, nuclear medicine. You can go to ultrasound school and learn to be an ultrasound tech. There are so many career opportunities in radiology that so many people don't know about. And by the way, there's a huge need for talented individuals, much like yourself, Holland.
Thank you. And so, just kind of going off of that, how we need more Black and Brown people within radiology. Why, I know it's important, but why do you think, in your opinion, that it's so important to have people that look like us in these fields?
Number one, I think when it comes to healthcare, as you hear a lot of people talk about disparity, and that a lot of people who are brown and black, sometimes in health, things present differently to us. It's not the same as it is for our Caucasian brothers and sisters. Even the way, if you look at cancers, the way it shows up on our skin with darker skin, it doesn't resonate. You might not necessarily that little mole on a dark skinned person like myself. So having someone who can understand exactly from where you came and someone's going to listen and someone who's going to see that what you're saying is really true because they've experienced it is huge. And that doesn't mean that we don't have dynamic people who are non-Black. We do. We have some fantastic people. But nothing says comfort like someone who looks familiar and who understands the world that you're working in, and also who's willing to take that time to share with you what they're dealing with and what the way they have navigated. There's a level of comfort in that. So we want to make sure that our patient clientele see people who look like them no matter what color they are. I don't care if they're polka dot. We want to see if we have people that look like them and the people that walk in their world, in their community, because it's all about providing equity when it comes to giving healthcare.
Thank you for that. So to all of our listeners, pre-med.
Yes, radiology, don't forget about us. We would love to have you.
Yes, yes. And so just to conclude with this wonderful interview, I know that you did give some advice earlier about networking, but for anyone who wants to be in the same shoes that you are in today, do you have any advice for them?
I would say, one, be open-minded. Okay, things don't always work the exact way you want them to, but I think that everything's divine for a reason. You're not in the space where you're at for no reason at all. There's always a lesson to learn. Two, all people can present an opportunity. Even somebody who's in a store at Eddie Bauer buying a new pair of socks and some hiking boots can be a potential for opportunity. And lastly, I would say, run your own race. Don't worry about what everybody else has done, didn't do, should have did, could have did. You walk your own path at your own pace, and I can assure you, you're going to arrive to your destination, which should be success.
Wow, that was very, very good advice. I just want to thank you so, so much for taking time out of your day to be on this with me today.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for having me, Holland.
Of course. And to all of our listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed that interview. I want to thank every one of our listeners for jumping on the Let's Keep It Moving on the podcast. We must also thank SA Tech, Northrop Grumman, and the Richmond Foundation. If you would like to hear this podcast or share it with your friends, please go to the Patriots Nesby Jr. website, www.patriots-ttc.org. And please send us an email at podcast@patriots-ttc.org and let us know what you think about our show. Until our next show, let's keep it moving on the Patriots Nesby Jr. podcast. This is Holland signing off.